So as we said, the visa type, the 190 is a permanent visa. So, that's a massive advantage. There's no doubt about that. And it does give you permanent residency for a period of 5 years. Typically speaking, within that time frame, depending on your individual situation, you would have the opportunity also to apply for citizenship. The 491, as we said, is a provisional visa. So it's a 5-year work visa, and you can only apply for permanent residency after 3 years of being on the 491 visa and satisfying certain conditions. It also allows you, the 190, another considerable advantage is that it also allows you to sponsor relatives, whether that be for a partner visa or a family-sponsored 491 visa. The 491, on the other instance, doesn't allow you to sponsor relatives, only sponsor relatives for a visitor visa or a tourist visa. So that is a major, I guess, advantage of the 190 visa for sure. When we're talking about points allocation, this is where we see a big advantage for the 491. When you're nominated for a 190 visa, you're awarded an additional 5 points towards your points tally and nomination. Whereas when you're nominated for the 491 visa, you actually are awarded an additional 15 points. So that's a massive gap. And for that particular reason, we see increasing popularity for the 491 visa, because the reality is, for a lot of people, that 15 points can really make a big difference in terms of meeting the threshold of 65 points and also getting a nomination and then an eventual invitation for a skilled visa, being the 491 visa. Another aspect to consider and an advantage for the 491 visa is the eligible occupation list that you can choose from. So the 190 visa is limited to the MLTSSL list, commonly referred to as a medium long-term list, and also the short-term list. So there's 2 lists you can choose from. Please also note that just because your occupation appears on any of those 2 lists, it doesn't necessarily mean that you're eligible to apply. You also need to have a look at the state lists of the state lists of the respective state or territory, and your occupation would need to feature on the state list to be able to apply for that visa. Whereas the 491 is a little bit more expansive. You can choose from either the medium to long-term list, the short-term list, or the regional occupation list. But again, it's important to note that the occupation must also feature on the respective state list. But for example, at the moment in Queensland, they're just going by the Department of Home Affairs lists. So if you're considering the 491 in Queensland, provided your occupation is on either 3 of those lists, then you're eligible to make an application or to express your interest. Whereas the same applies in Queensland, but you'd have to choose an occupation for the 190 from either the medium-term list or the short-term list. Another big advantage for the 491 relates to the actual points required to receive a nomination. So the 190 usually requires higher points, and on top of the points, the requirements are usually a bit more stringent. You'll often see higher work experience requirements, higher English level requirements, and obviously the points that you require are typically higher as well. So in most cases for the 190, and we'll again touch on this with some of your questions which relate to this as well, you'll find that 80 points usually is the benchmark for a 190 visa, whereas for the 491 visa, typically speaking, 65 points will make you will suffice to receive a nomination for that particular subclass. Priority processing also, I guess, gives another distinct advantage to the 491 visa. It is listed as a subclass where priority processing exists. So for the 491 visa, priority visa and aims to be finalised in much shorter duration than the 190 visa. And a point in case is this: one of our clients recently received the 491 nomination. Shortly after, obviously, received the invitation to apply for the 491 visa. Excuse me. And within a period of 3 months, he was granted the 491 visa. On the flip side, we've got clients who have applied for the 190 visa, and they've been waiting for 5, 6, 7 months already. So there's a distinct advantage there with the 491 visa being part of the priority processing category. Your 491 visa, given that the government is really keen to populate designated regional areas as opposed to metropolitan cities, is a big advantage. And you'll find that the 491 visa is processed in a lot quicker time than the 190 visa. Competitiveness is another, I guess, strong point for the 491. When we're talking about 190 and the 491, as we have seen in the previous slides, there's no doubt that the gold standard is, when we're talking about these two particular visas, is a 190 visa. Because it is a express PR visa, you can live anywhere in Australia, etc., etc. And the 491, in comparison, is the silver standard. It is a provisional visa, and also you need to wait out 3 years and meet certain conditions before you apply for permanent residency. So there's no doubt that also there's more stringent criteria of the 190 visa, means that despite being more desirable, it is a lot harder to actually to get, as opposed to the 491. Also, a lot of people probably may not qualify points-wise because the 190 is so competitive. So no doubt that's why the 491 has become increasingly more popular, because the points required not as high, it's not as competitive, and a lot of the requirements are more relaxed as opposed to the more stringent requirements of the 190 visa. And again, we'll have a look at some of these requirements in comparison, and you'll get an illustrative sort of example of this and how it sort of works.